this in at the start of this video because I'm hoping this one gets a fair few views because of the car that it's on. So I'm hoping a lot of people see this. There has been talk of me doing some merch, which is actually in the works. I promise. I actually have some samples on the way of a couple of things just to decide what I want to do design-wise and what actual product. To tide everyone over in the meantime, me and a mate put together a sticker design. Now this is just one. I'm going to do a couple. There's a couple in the works, but I just wanted to test. Like, I'm very new to this stuff, so I just wanted to do one to get things going, and my package of my first stickers have arrived, which are these. Now, obviously you can tell it's a play on the old Marlboro cigarette logo, obviously with the name change to the channel. Now, just to explain, on the bottom, I don't know if you'll be able to read it, but it actually says cleanliness and maintenance. And what that is from is in the S31 Cefiro brochure from the late 80s. This is actually a really bad English translation. It's on one of the headings in one of the pages. And it sort of relates to me, so I thought I'll chuck that in there. And it's funny because it's just like a sort of Japlish sort of thing that doesn't even translate into anything that really means anything. So these are 60 by 60. I've got 1,000 of them here. I'm going to do these super cheap. Give me $3 for a single one. Now this is delivered, so posted to wherever you are in Australia. I don't know if I'm going to do international posting. I don't know, we'll see. So $3 each, or I'll do 2 for $5. 3 for $7, 4 for $9, or I'll do 5 for $10 delivered to wherever you are. So super, super cheap. The money goes straight back into doing merch. So the merch outlay is a lot of money, and I'm a bit of a tight ass. I'd rather spend the money on cars. So the whole merch thing is an expensive exercise. So this is just going to go straight back into buying merch to then give to you guys. So yeah, if you're interested in supporting the channel, give me an email, which I'll put down below in the description, or a lot of you have me on Facebook or Instagram, so just message me wherever and I can send these straight out to you guys. And I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. Believe it or not, she's back. Now, a lot of people were asking for a video on this car recently. I don't know why, it just came out of the blue where I was getting multiple comments on doing a video on this car. Now, a lot of people, especially the Commodore guys, if you've been watching since I got the VN, you probably don't even know that I own this car. Plan was to get it and go straight away for a bit of a drive, do a rundown on the whole car again, what it's got, for the people that don't know anything about it. But when I went to pick it up, as soon as I started it, it was pissing fuel out the fuel reg, out of the actual gauge itself. As much as I didn't want to drive it, I did. So I just wrapped it up with this rag, cable tied the shit out of it, and as you can see, there's a shitload of fuel. That thing is soaked. So that unfortunately stopped the intro to this video, so I'm gonna have to fix that first, and then I'll do the rundown on exactly what this car is and the history that I have with this vehicle. So I have ordered a brand new gauge for the fuel pressure reg straight from TurboSmart, so that's on its way. But in the meantime, because I want to drive this car and do this video, the plan was to actually take the one off the VN, but I couldn't be bothered, to be honest, and the fittings are around the wrong way, so it was just too much stuffing around. So I ended up just putting a plug in where the gauge was. Now the fuel pressure's already set, so the gauge is, you know, unless you have a problem, the gauge is pretty pointless. So in the meantime, just so I can drive it, plug up is fine. And I quickly want to change a cool thing I bought for this car actually a fairly long time ago. So this is the air filter that's on it. As you can see, it's collapsed. It's been on there for about, I'm gonna say 7 or 8 years. So this can go in the bin. And Greddy recently released these new line of filters. Now, as I've explained, I like to stick to one brand, and this car, pretty much everything on it is trust Greddy. So I will get into that after when I explain about the car. But yeah, when they released one of these, I had to get it. So 4-inch inlet, Greddy. So I'll quickly pop this on. So that's on, fits perfect. Got to make sure the badge is the right way so everyone can see it and know that you've got a Greddy filter. And this is the best part about it. Woo! Alright, so here we are in our nice secluded area where no one is gonna bother us, and I can flap my gums for the next half an hour. Now bear with me, this is going to be a lot of talking, explaining about this car. So I'll start off with, if you don't know anything about Cefiros, this is a 1988. So Series 1, I'm pretty sure these went all the way through to 94, 93, 94. They had a lot of different engines depending on which country it was in. They were never sold here in Australia, so if you ever see a Cefiro here, it's an import. Lots in Japan, obviously. There seems to be a lot in like Costa Rica, Chile, Philippines got a lot of them. New Zealand got probably the most out of any, you know, outside Japan country. I don't know why. They're like Commodores, they're like the thrash car. So came with anything from RB20Es, which is a single cam, straight six, non-turbo, very reliable motor, but makes stuff all power. So 20Es, they had 20 DEs, 20 DETs, and also I'm pretty sure the later ones got the first non-VCT RB25 non-turbos, which is when they started putting them in late 32s, and then obviously the 33 came out, which had RB25s. And also you could get them in all-wheel drivers. I've never seen an all-wheel drive one. I know there's a few around, but yeah, an all-wheel drive one would be very, very cool. So how I got this car in the first place? Well, I had an R32 GDST, which I'll put a picture of up here. It was very, very rough. I did lots and lots of street drifting in this car. It was very reliable, but rust in the rear quarters because it had been cut out for a wide body. Like the back half of it was matte black, it was stuffed, there was lots of rust, so much rust, sill panels. I started pulling it apart to fix it, and then I just gave up because it was just too much work for me at the time. I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. So I parted that car out. Now I did keep a lot of things because I knew I wanted another car with an RB in it. So I kept my steering wheel seat, intercooler kit, radiator, a few other bits and pieces. And a mate was actually going to buy this car because his R32 got stolen. And when he was going to get paid out from insurance, the plan was to go and buy this car, which was sitting at Holford Motors in Spotswood in Victoria. Just been imported, wasn't complianced or anything yet, and that was the plan. So I actually went to look at this car with a mate for him to buy it. His car ended up being found, so he got his car back, and I had parted my 32 at the time, so I thought, beautiful. I liked the car, I'd already looked at it, so I went down and spoke to Dom. I'm pretty sure Holford's is still there. I'm not sure if they even import cars anymore. I think they just do compliance work, but it was a very popular place, you know, 10 to 15 years ago. They actually used to sponsor the Luke Fink's old ADGP car, the Holford's S14, which I'll also put a picture. There's going to be a lot of picture inserts here, so be wary. So I bought the car, it got compliance, registered, everything in my name. At the time, it was a very cheap car. Like, it was more expensive than 32s and S13s at the time, but I'm a big four-door guy. As you notice, Evo's a four-door, VN's a four-door, the XE was a four-door. I've had four-door 33s, 31s. So I'm big on sedans. This car really jumped out at me, and I'd rather pay the bit extra to get something a bit more rare at the time. But I had zero, like, I don't even reckon I'd even taken a look at Cefiros before I even went to look at this car. So I bought it. It was stock standard, this car. I actually have a picture of this exact car sitting in a yard in Japan, which I'll also insert. So it had this kit on it already. It had some little 16-inch wheels. It had coilovers that were stuffed, a catback exhaust, and that was it. Full stock interior, engine bay was all stock, apart from pod filter, that was it. So it was a very, very basic car. And plan was the little bits and pieces I'd kept off the 32, I could put in this. So as soon as I got the car, I did fuel pump, the front mount intercooler, radiator, seat, steering wheel, dump pipe, all this stuff off the 32. So all went straight on this, and actually went really good. It was my daily driver, so I drove this car every day. Straight away, also a new set of coilovers, because these were stuffed, the ones that were in it. They were knocking, leaking. And I thrashed the car around like that for ages. Street drifting, stuff like that. Heaps of people thought it was so cool just because it was so different. There wasn't any Cefiros really around at the time. I ended up doing low mount HKS turbo, a HKS 2535, which was probably a little bit big. I forgot to mention, so this car is a factory RB20 non-turbo, automatic, with high CAS, which is the rear steering, and a factory LSD. So that's how it was brand new. It came into the country like someone had already done it in Japan. 20 DET swap, so it was straight 6 turbo, the 5-speed, and the rear end had been changed to a non-high CAS subframe, so it had no rear steering. It's just got solid tow arms. So anyway, I did a HKS low mount turbo on the stock manifold with an external gate. You know, did some GDR injectors, did a NIS tune. It got tuned by Trent, who is now Checkered Tuning. This was when it was his old name. I can't even remember the old name, it was that long ago. Did some HKS camshafts, just some drop-ins, and got that tune. It made 220 kilowatt at the time, but you know, not knowing anything about cars then, I was sort of just bolting parts on, and the cams really did not work with that turbo setup. It had a lot down low, like it was, you know, real responsive, but it died in the ass at like 5.5, 6 grand. It's like the cams were fighting against the turbo. Anyway, so I drove that around for a bit, did a few track days like that. It was very good on the track, but after a while that engine carked it. It dropped compression, one night street drifting on limiter. I don't know what happened in the engine bay, but oil just came rushing out of every orifice you could think of that it could come out of an engine, all over the windscreen, topped it up on the side of the road. I drove it home and it was gone, like engine compression gone, like there was oil dripping out of the cat, out of the end of the exhaust, like this thing was dead. So at the time, weighed up my options, ended up building an RB20, which was crazy at the time, like no one did RB20s. Very basic though, just pretty much stock crank, stock rods, just had forged pistons. So that got built, you know, head studs and shit like that, dropped it in with the exact same turbo, so it was exactly the same as it was before, just rebuilt. It ended up making 240 kilowatt on a bit more boost. It was still a bit shit though, it just wasn't working, that turbo and cam setup. So I ended up buying off Skylines Australia forums at the time, I ended up buying a high mount TD06 kit, so genuine Greddy stuff, perfect, the most perfect turbo for RB20s. Put that on. It ended up making 260 kilowatt, but completely different car. This thing, like, all the power up top, smash limiter, first, second, third gear, this thing ripped, absolutely ripped for an RB20. I'll insert a video. Now, an RB20 with a gritty hot side on it is possibly the best sounding thing on earth, I reckon. So raspy. Oh, if I was gonna do another RB20 one day, that's exactly what it would be. Now, that engine was nothing but troubles. Now, running the engine in, obviously you have to do run-in procedure. So I was doing like 500 Ks, dropped the oil, 500 Ks, dropped the oil, then got it tuned. Within the first 100 kilometers, this had an oil cooler on it. Oil filter relocator kit that bolts to the side of the block had loosened itself and come off while I was running the motor in on the street around the corner from my house. Like, I'm talking 1-2 kilometers from my house. And by the time the oil light came on, it was too late. I pulled over, we towed it home. Oh my God. Got it home, pulled the rocker covers off. It had eaten the exhaust side camshaft and like the caps and everything, like it was all like melted together and it all seized up and metal through the engine. So I had to pull it out. I took it to Head Tech, which is still going here in Newport. They went over it, so they fixed the head, they welded it all up, remachined it. I bought a brand new camshaft from overseas, you know, the exact same thing that was in there. And they tore the motor down, they re-ringed, re-bearinged it, you know, oil pump, everything, because metal had gone through everything. All sweet, put it back in. That was fine. I ended up running it in, all was good. You know, it got tuned, it made the power it made, 260 something kilowatt at the time. Went absolutely sick, like sick motor. First track day though, at Winton Raceway, engine started knocking. Drove it into the pit, it sounded like it was in the head, so pulled that same rocker cover off, and a few of the cam cap bolts had snapped inside the head. Then in turn, the cam was sort of sitting all weird. It smashed a few of the cam caps into the rocker covers and cracked the rocker covers, and it was an absolute disaster. Towed it home, took it back to Head Tech. I will admit, they came to the party, they took blame for everything. They ended up helicoiling everything in the head so it wouldn't happen again. Put it back in, and next track day, Winton again, car blew a head gasket. Now, that was my fault because I'd done a fan and shroud at the time and I didn't have it set up properly. The fan nicked the shroud and it pulled the fan into the radiator, destroyed the fan, so it lost all its coolant, and on the track I just didn't notice. By the time I came back in, I noticed, and it didn't even overheat, which was weird. But yeah, blown head gasket, like oil all milky, gone all through the engine. Pulled the head off, did a head gasket in it, got the head decked, put it all back together. Another Winton, so this is 3 in a row, 3 track days, and the engine spun a bearing. So that was it. I was so over it at that point. Now what the engine place reckoned is when I blew the head gasket, caused so much heat, because I did like 2 laps with no coolant in it because I didn't notice that so much heat had gone through the thing that's probably what damaged the bearing. So, but that for me was the last straw. I'm like, I'm over this engine, it's cursed, it's nothing but problems. I pulled it out, weighed up my options. Do I build another one? Do I just get another stock 20? Do I do a 25? Like, that's when RB25s then were a lot cheaper than now, but I was sort of still, like, I probably couldn't do it myself, an engine swap like that, even though it's a very simple engine swap. Going from a 2 litre to 2.5, because in the end, they're pretty much the same engine, just the head's pretty much different. Because one runs variable cam timing and all this crap. Anyway, so there's a lot of wiring and stuff like that I didn't want to deal with. Computer again, blah, blah, blah. So the concoction I came up with is I did a completely stock RB25. I reused my head studs from the RB20. We did a head gasket. So I pulled the head off, did a head gasket, head studs. I used my RB20 camshafts, so that gets rid of the variable cam timing, and therefore I could put all the RB20 crank angle sensor, idle air controller, anything electrical on the engine, I put from the RB20 onto the 25, and then you have to do 0 wiring. You just drop the 2.5 in and plug it in and start it, and it ran perfect. One problem though is, now I bought the RB25 secondhand obviously. When we pulled the head off, it was an unknown motor, $500 I remember I paid for it. When we pulled the head off to do the head studs and the head gasket, 2 of the bores had very, very prominent scoring in the bores. I'm talking, you could feel it with your nail, they were that bad up and down the bores. At that point, very, very over doing engines for this car, just wanted to drive it. Out of sight, out of mind. I just pretended I didn't see it, whatever. Did a timing belt and all that, put it all back together. I thought, you know what, if this has a fair bit of blow by, I'm just gonna put a big catch can on it and I'm just gonna send it. I don't care, I'm just over it, I wanna drive it. Put it back in. I put that engine in 8 years ago now, and it's the same engine that's still in there. This engine has been thrashed within an inch of its life. I'm talking track days, street drifting, street driving. For a long time, and like this car never got babied. Every time I took it out, it was getting the absolute shit thrashed out of it. And it's still going strong. Stayed like that for ages, but then I got the XE and I sort of ignored it. Then I ended up moving out, got my own house, moved out of my parents' house finally, and it sort of got put on the back burner. Then I got the Evo, I sold the XE, I got the Evo and got the VN, and pretty much since then this car has been non-existent. It's pretty useless, as in it's cop bait to drive around. It is very, very loud, very low. So yeah, out of all the cars I own, it's the most useless. So I put it in storage when I got the other 2 cars. So just after I moved out, I actually gave it a bit of a birthday. The body on this, because I damaged some front guards, I'd done a bar, I'd done a rear bar. There was a lot of panels that were different colors because they were just, you know, the paint code and paint it and put them on. Also, it had, I'm assuming in Japan, it had had an accident in this quarter at some point, because you could see the blend into the door, and like here was a different color to here, and the paint was starting to peel and going all yellowy over here. So I wanted to give it a bit of a birthday. So if you go back about 1.5 years ago through my videos, I'll try insert the card thing at the top here. Me and Minnie did a full respray. So I'm talking inside doors, door jambs, boot, inside bonnet, everything except the engine bay, and gave this car a really mad cleanup in the factory color. And pretty much that's where we are today. So I've pulled it out of storage. I swapped it with the Evo. I thought I'll go over a few things because, as I said, I'm just sort of in a different mindset with cars now, how I do them. How clean and picky I am now is definitely not how I was when I put this car together. So there's a lot of things I want to change. Whether I can be bothered, I don't know, because I sort of don't have the enthusiasm with this car, just because I can't do anything with it. And I know a lot of people will say, so just get rid of it. But I've had this car for 12 years. So 2009 I got this car. I'm the only owner in Australia. So it's it's part of me. So I think I'm gonna be stuck with this car forever. If anything, I know it sounds selfish, I'd rather part it out, just because I don't think I could bear to see anyone else own it. So we will get into the car, exactly what it has and what the plans are. This video is a lot of talking. I'm gonna say this is gonna be the longest video now on the channel. I'm guessing gonna be around the half an hour mark. So I hope it's not too long. I hope you stay tuned and enjoy the rundown on this car. So as I said, 88. So first off, I'm pretty sure, Series 1. We'll go body-wise first. So factory, these are not factory bars or skirts. I'll insert a picture up here of what a standard Series 1 looks like. So this is actually an Ortec copy kit. It's not genuine because it's fiberglass. A genuine Ortec kit for one of these I've never even seen. They do exist, but I've never seen a genuine. I would kill for genuine plastic, but you know. So these came on the car. So it has an Ortec front bumper, Ortec side skirts. It used to have an Ortec rear bumper, but I smashed it into a million pieces, and getting replacements is near on impossible. So I found a genuine plastic. This is actually a Series 3 bumper, so the later one. It has the later tail lights. The earlier one had sort of stripes along it, and I think the lights were in sort of different positions, and the garnish was different as well. So I did those. They're a lot better looking. It has factory Nissan weather shields, factory mirrors. All this chrome is all factory. Factory, they usually have a mold here on the doors, which when we painted the car we decided to leave off. Looks much cleaner. These are the factory Series 1 tail lights. Now there's a few variations. I think there's double projector with a fog light, which are these. I think there's a triple projector. I'm not sure, I could be wrong. And the Series 3 I think are the 2 bricks, which are the expensive headlights. This also has a Series 3 grille, so the chrome grille. It's sort of like, looks like a C33 Laurel grille. Body wise, that is it. Obviously it has flared guards to fit the wheels, and that's it body wise. It's very clean. We left the badges off when we painted the car. Factory color, which is THO from memory. It's called bluish silver metallic. I love this color. So that's it body wise. Now interior, so back then I was still very much into keeping full interiors and stuff like that. So this has, you know, even though this was my track car, it has all 4 door trims, complete dash, roof lining. Even though it has a cage, it still has back seat, factory back seat. Now this is the factory trim. So when I bought this car, all 4 seats were all this trim. I'll insert a picture of what the stock seats look like, because they, impossible, if you're doing track days, you're gonna end up flying out the window in one of these seats. So this Bride Bricks is out of my R32. So this has got a lot of sentimental value, this seat. It's very old, and these are super expensive now, the used ones. Does need a little bit of foam work, like it's a bit worn. This steering wheel is actually out of my 32 as well, so it's a 350mm Nardi deep corn. Now I really need deep corns, which are, so obviously it's spaced out because I'm so short. Full set of factory mats, front and rear, still has factory Cefiro mats. Greddy boost gauge, has a Defi DIN slot here, which is oil temp, oil pressure, water temp. My mum actually did this console to match the seat. It has a R33 GDR passenger seat, which lately I've seen those pairs of front seats going for $2,000 to $2,500 just for the fronts. I got this one for $200. I was super lucky, and it's blue, so it stays with the blue theme in here. As I said, roof lining, everything. So here, it actually has what this car was factory. So as you can see, RB20 DE, so non-turbo. It had high CAS, rear steering, and factory LSD, and AT for automatic. So it still has the automatic cluster, as you can see. And this car still has very, very low Ks. I bought this with like 105,000 or something like that. It now only has 120. And genuine Ks, factory cluster, everything. So it's still a very low K car. All the heater box, everything removed, air cons, all that stuff's all removed, that's all gone. If any Cefiro guys are watching, if anyone has a factory head unit, I would happily buy it. So please contact me if anyone has a factory Nissan Cefiro head unit. So this car used to actually have a full cage in it. So one that went down here, across the windscreen, down around the dash. But at the time, Vic Drift changed their rules with specs on cages and stuff like that. They needed to be to cam spec, so I had to pull it out. That was a full bolt-in. So I sold that and I got a half cage. So just in the back, it's welded in, boxed into the floor. There you can see where the old cage was, the holes. And it also has a Cusco bolt-in add-on, which is actually really good for GoPros. So really tight cage in here, right up against the roof, right up against the door trims, and that's welded in, so it ain't going anywhere. So that's the interior. Now boot. So pretty factory in here. It's just got the back battery in the boot, you know, in this nice little box. It has a Nismo rear strut brace, old logo, for all the parts collectors out there. As you can see, it was all painted in here and everything when we painted the car. I got all these cool little factory accessories. So this is the Nissan sort of pull out, so when you're pulling stuff in and out of your boot, you don't damage the trims. This is a collapsible storage box, so you unclip it and it sort of comes out like that. And also I have a Cefiro granny bag. So this is like one of your grandma's sort of shopping bags. So fold the wheels out the bottom. And you can cart your groceries around at Coles or whatever in your Cefiro shopping bag. Would also be good for track days. Now engine wise, as I said, it's got a completely stock bottom end RB25, and there's a lot going on in here. So, as I said, RB20 cams. If you look on the front here, no variable cam timing, and I run an RB20 cover. So people still think this has an RB20 when they look in the engine bay. Has a Tomei fuel rail with 1000cc top feed injectors, and this is still on 98, this car. It has a genuine Greddy intake manifold with a Q45 throttle body, Turbo Smart fuel pressure reg, did new water pump, new oil pump, stuff like that. Hot side is the same Greddy hot side that I had on the RB20, just the turbo's different. So I moved up to a T67 25G with an 8cm rear housing. Obviously front mount intercooler, which is Apexy. I actually bought this, right, brand new. A guy bought it for his Supra. If you know Apexy stuff, it's very expensive. Guy bought it for his Supra, then crashed the car before he put it on, so it was brand new, still in the box, with a price tag of $1,200 on it, and I bought it for $200. So a brand new Apexy bar and plate intercooler. Obviously I just had piping to match, 4-inch inlet, external gate down there, you know, all braided lines, big dump pipe, high mount manifold, has a Greddy radiator as well. I'm massive into Greddy stuff. Greddy oil cooler, and it still has a Niz tune. Now very, very basic. Now if I wanna, I don't even know anyone that does Niz tunes anymore, so I don't even know if I could get this car retuned if I wanted to. I'd obviously have to move to something standalone like a Haltech or Link or whatever. But for now, it still goes good. It did make 320 kilowatt with Trent at one point, but I'll be honest, this motor is dying a slow death at the moment. Like, compression is obviously low. It doesn't feel like it makes the same power it used to. The last time it was on the dyno at Dr. Drift, it made 288 kilowatt on 19 PSI. So that's what it's still on. I don't think it makes that power anymore. It definitely doesn't feel like it, but who knows? Maybe we'll run it up on the dyno at one point. Now, as you can see, from the oil here down below the catch can, I literally emptied that before I drove it, and I have only driven like 5 minutes from my house to do this video, so she's definitely breathing. So here, as you can see, shows us an RB25. So that's the variable cam timing solenoid. Just to prove it to everyone, it is actually an RB25. Now, obviously the elephant in the room that everyone's gonna ask about, why does it have no tubs? So, another story. When this car had the standard intake manifold on it, so the standard one on RBs sort of come up like that, and the throttle body's here and your piping sort of goes that way. So when it was like that with this turbo, before I did this Greddy intake manifold, because the piping ran along here, it got really, really hot from the exhaust manifold, and with the ECU, when intake air temps get too high, it would drop timing and drop power, obviously. Now, we were going interstate for a track day. I'd already booked, got all my tires, everything, and that's when it started doing it. And I was doing everything. I heat wrapped everything, didn't help it. You'd thrash it once and then it would just go into like a limp mode. The last thing we came up with, like 2 days before going interstate for this track day, is just cut the tubs out, get some airflow through. At the time, we didn't really care, who gives a shit. Now I sort of do. I kind of wish I didn't do it. But it's not that hard. I want to paint this engine bay at some point anyway, so while it's out, we'll put some aftermarket tubs in it. It's no big thing. But anyway, at that track day, it didn't even help. So it still did the same thing. So I did this track day interstate with like half the power. I was really struggling, and it cracked the manifold on that day. And at the end of the day, I towed the car up. My mate drove his 32 to New South Wales, and the flywheel shit itself and like came through the floor and destroyed the bell housing and gearbox and everything. So he had to tow the car home on the trailer I was using, and I had to drive this home in limp mode with a cracked manifold like 9 hours from Wakefield all the way back to the western suburbs of Melbourne, non-stop. I didn't shut the car off because it had trouble starting, and I was worried it wouldn't start. So when we stopped for lunch, I just left it in the car park running. Anytime we stopped, just left it running, like 9 hours. And it made it, no dramas. 1 tank of fuel. Now I really gotta hurry with this last bit. The GoPro is on 1%, so hopefully it doesn't die in the meantime. Now onto wheels and suspension. Now these come factory 4-stud with a twin piston front caliper and a single on the back with a handbrake inside the disc. I did a 5-stud swap with R32 GDST front and rear calipers and discs. So it still retains the drum handbrake, but bigger disc, 4-pot caliper on the front, 2-pot caliper on the back, and 5-stud. So better selection of wheels and better brake options. It also has an R32 GDST brake booster to match and master. Wheels wise, now this car's had a lot of wheels on it over the years. I'm talking probably 10 different sets of wheels, but these are staying forever. These are probably my favorite wheel ever. So these are Panasport G7s. They are 17 by 9.5 plus 12 on the back with a 215/45 that only just fit. And they're a 17 by 9 plus 16 with a 215/40 Nitto on the front. So this is I love these wheels so much. Even if I sell this car, they will not go on these wheels. Definitely not. They are with me forever. Favorite wheel ever. Now suspension wise, I'll start in the back. It has a CAS 2-way mechanical LSD with 411s with 6-bolt shafts. It's got JIC coilovers all around. So they've been in there, you know, pretty much for 12 years. It has JIC upper camber arms in the back and a white line sway bar, and also has Powered by Max toe arms that are sort of have the bend in them, like the S14 I did a few videos ago, because I had some other arms in there, but because they're on such of an angle because of the height of the car, on bumps, I broke multiple ones that were hitting the subframe and then just snapping off, and then your wheels like... in the front, it has a 40mm drop spindle, which are the first Driftworks knuckle, as you can see here. So 40mm drop spindle, and it also has like Ackerman mods and stuff like that. Of course my camera died, so I've now moved to my phone. So sorry if this sounds shit or the picture's different. I don't have anything here to charge it with. So I can't remember where I was up to. I think, so Driftworks knuckles with like Ackerman mods and a 40mm drop spindle. Kazama caster rods, stock LCAs, stock rack, Kazama tie rods and tie rod ends, so they're really, really thick compared to the stock ones. I was bending so many stock ones. A few things I missed, it has a RB25 gearbox as well, so the stronger 5-speed with a MPC clutch, single piece tail shaft, full 3-inch exhaust, which is very stuffed. It is like flat at the bottom. Hopefully I can get under there and I'll show you, but there's no way that 3-inch exhaust is 3-inch anymore. Pretty much it. That's the car. I've had it a very long time. I think I'm stuck with it forever. I'd love to know what the Commodore guys think of it. You know, it's obviously not going to be everyone's thing, but I love this car so much. But as I said, it's pretty useless. Plans are to fix a few things, the cracked manifold, the diffs leaking, stuff like that, just little bits and pieces. Give it a clean underneath, because like then, when I was doing stuff, it was just, you know, buy it, put it on, or get secondhand or whatever. Like there's no cleaning, no nothing. So underneath this car is covered in oil and grease and shit, just from years and years of track days and street driving and shit like that. We'll get stuck into cleaning it probably next video. I'd like to hear what people think of the car, what you think I should do, what do you want to see on this car, like what do you want to see me do in videos to this car, apart from doing skids, which I know everyone's going to say. It does do a good burnout when it doesn't break drive shafts. So yeah, that's pretty much it on the car. I will now take you guys for a bit of a drive. I am a bit worried about thrashing this car, so there's going to be no thrashing at the moment, because this fuel has been in it for over a year, and the oil, I'm going to say probably 5 years since I've changed the oil in this car, so it really needs a good, you know, a maintenance checkup. As you see, I sit super low in this car. It feels like your ass is on the ground. I did forget to mention another cool thing about this car. It still has a factory Nissan windscreen and the factory molds around the windscreen. So if you've ever had a windscreen done in your life, you'll know they usually just throw your molds out and they put their sort of generic rubber thing around that looks shit. So I'll insert over the top of this factory Nissan windscreen with all the genuine molds, which I absolutely love. Now the plan for the end of this video was going to be some driving clips, but this video has gotten so long just from all my talking that I think I'm going to put it into next week's video. Sorry guys, but no driving of the Cefiro this week. I'm actually doing the next video already right now as I'm editing this one. Just to give you an indication, fixing shit on this car. So driving stuff next week. Sorry guys, see you then.